Hello and welcome to the CDW Canada Tech Talks podcast. I'm your host, KJ Burke, Field CTO for Hybrid Infrastructure at CDW Canada. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about managed services. We're going to talk about how to bring managed services part of your team. I'm joined by Giancarlo Tanti, Chief Information Officer at VetStrategy.
Thank you, KJ. Appreciate
you joining us today. And Graham Cruz, Principal for Cybersecurity Solutions at CDW Canada.
Great to be here, KJ. Thank you.
So Giancarlo, we were talking a little bit about before managed services and how you've approached managed services. Could you tell me a little bit about how you've progressed through your career and your role at VetStrategy?
Sure. I've been at VetStrategy for about 3 years now. Prior to that, I was in private equity for a few years and then public healthcare for about 10 years.
Okay, and I think we were talking a little bit about managed services and kind of how you bring those people onto your team. And Graham, with your role at CDW Canada, you work to help customers understand what we do in managed services and how they can augment, our customers and what they're trying to do. Can you talk a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you to this point?
Yeah, KJ. So I've been in cybersecurity for about 20 years now. Throughout that time, I've been client-facing, helping our customers build security solutions to help with their cybersecurity needs. At CDW Canada, my focus is on evangelizing our managed security practice and putting together solutions that build trust within their organization and trust within CDW and helping them solve their cybersecurity problems.
So it's interesting you mentioned trust, because I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is what do we look for in good managed services partners, and how do we bring that into our teams and then use them effectively? And I think trust is definitely a topic that we'll cover. So my history is mostly working on the customer side and being engaged within an organization, really trying to help innovate and drive change. And there's in my experience, at least earlier in my career, there was more of a competition with managed services. When I thought about, especially what was going on with a lot of outsourcing and IT departments were moving, everybody to a managed service. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, managed services,
Sure.
Either, outsourcing versus out-tasking and kind of, how you approach things at VetStrategy?
I think if you'd asked me, a decade or more ago, I would have been a proponent of insourcing, right? It's, we want to retain the knowledge and the expertise in-house. But with, when you have, if I take a step back, the time that it takes to post a job requisition, screen candidates, go through the hiring process, and onboard them just to their first day, we've noticed it takes a minimum of 8 weeks. And then for that candidate to get acclimated within your team and within the organization, get a good sense of the role and get a good understanding of what your caliber of expectations are, that can take at least another 8 weeks. Where when you have a really good partner who knows your business, they understand your expectations, you've already pre-established the baseline and sort of the client supplier relationship. It's just a matter of getting a pipeline of really good services or candidates or task authorization where you can quickly automate certain tasks or get projects off the ground.
Yeah, I really think that's a key part of it. And I think that's in a lot of ways how managed services, at least in my experiences, have changed. And so, early in my career, it was all about how do I take all of my technical resources and really move that to an outside partner? And where I've seen more success and kind of we can talk, Graham, is around, finding those functions that are commoditized, finding those functions that are, they don't really drive differentiation within the business, but they still need to get done.
Yeah.
I always used the phrase, unfortunately, nobody ever was promoted because the backups happened.
Yeah.
And so backups is one of those things. So with the experience that you've had coming into more of a focus on managed services, how do you see the out-tasking versus outsourcing, and what are the conversations you have with customers around managed services?
great series of questions there, KJ. So in my experience, when I'm talking to customers about the opportunity for managed services, to me, it's about bringing value to that customer, having that customer, enabling that customer to focus on the things that are important to them while we handle the plumbing, while we handle the tasks associated with delivering an IT network or a cloud network, making sure that it's available and functional so that that organization can do the things that they're supposed to do. Doing IT in a mature manner, in a manner that provides and enables that business to go to market, to handle their customers and meet their customer demands. The IT function is really important because you are enabling that business to be productive and serving their customers. And so there's a lot of complexity with managing an environment, a network, a data center, or a cloud environment, and maintaining the expertise to ensure that that environment is operated and performing to our customers' expectations. That's hard. But when a business is investing in their go-to-market strategy, what they don't want to do or what they don't want to invest in is the IT function, right? Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that IT is available for them to go to market, but they're not investing in the best of breeds, the best resources, and the time needed to ensure that that network is available to them. Partnering with a service provider that can demonstrate maturity, can demonstrate an awareness of your business is what I think is an important consideration when you talk about managed services and outtasking those functions.
Yeah, and I think kind of the interesting part of that, in one sense, is every organization uses technology, but not every technology user organization really is an IT technology company. And so again, you want the advantage of leveraging the technology, but you're not necessarily in that line of business, VetStrategy, to be an IT company.
Exactly.
So I guess when we look at that then, and we sort of talked, you mentioned a couple of different reasons. Hiring timeframes, the amount of time it takes to bring staff on and then bring them and make them valuable to the organization. I guess, what are some of the other reasons, why you focus in with managed services and leverage them to
with having a really good partner offering managed services, there's the ability to scale, right? If I'm hiring one person or a couple of people for a particular project or task, when you have the right partner, you have a pool of resources, not just particular resources for what you're looking for, but you've got access to other account managers and other expertise within that supplier or even their partners that you can leverage, right? So and then that opens up opportunities to other areas. So even if it's as simple as doing a deployment or some sort of a configuration, there could be opportunity to look at security or privacy, and then I think partnering, having that right partner integrated with your organization, it makes the plumbing, right? The underlying IT or base technology infrastructure just run smoother, right? And then the smaller internal team can, continue to manage the expectations of the business and the executive leadership team. And then it sort of runs itself over a period of time and becomes operationalized.
Yeah. And as I was sort of, trying to prepare for this and have the conversation kind of in my head about what we were going to talk about. One of the interesting things that I was sort of thinking, let's say, I hope it's interesting, is really that I think that's been a lot of the power of the public cloud, whether it's SaaS services or infrastructure as a service. It's that it's really outtasking the infrastructure part of the management of IT. And I think that organizations have weighed the value of moving some services into the public cloud. They've weighed the value of leveraging a SaaS service rather than sort of building something themselves. So maybe walk me through a little bit about how do you approach making the decision, should I fill this internally? Should I use a managed services provider? Maybe I should go out and get a contractor or staff augmentation to do that. help me understand kind of like what is that process for you?
Typically, anything that's like corporate application hosted, you know, in our case at VetStrategy, a lot of our user-facing or corporate office user-facing applications are SaaS products. In that case, you know, we've got contracts established with those services providers. Therefore, our help desk is hands-off when it comes to managing or supporting those platforms. Usually it's the end user computing or field services or project-based work where I'm you know, feeling a little more confident in outsourcing that to the right supplier. Just to add on to that a little bit, you know, with the right partner who knows, you know, your expectation of service delivery and really knows your business, you know, you get to a point where you have them sitting in project discussions and project meetings within your organization because you develop that trust. And yes, that can be done with, you know, any contractor or, you know, newly onboarded employee. But again, someone who you've partnered with over the years, they understand your business, your expectation, your service delivery. And that's important, especially when you're dealing with, you know, hundreds of locations or thousands of employees. The demand, you know, gets really high, the volume gets really high. And, you know, in the acquisition space, the unknown for technology that you're adopting also gets really high as well, which drives complexity.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mention acquisitions because, you know, having been part of organizations that do a lot of acquisitions, both in mining and in software development, that is a unique sort of a use case. And I do think that you call upon something that's really interesting, which is having that understanding of other technologies, not just the ones that you're currently using. Because as we know, obviously, if you're acquiring another entity, you don't know what they're using. You don't know what their ERP is. You don't know how they're managing trouble tickets. You don't know what they're using for their email. Like, so there's so many unknowns. And as an organization that's maybe planning to do a number of acquisitions, you can't just put all those people on your bench. And so Graham, I think when you look at security services and managed services, how do organizations come to you in those situations, whether it's an acquisition or whether maybe they're doing an expansion or maybe they're just changing technologies because there's a technology that meets their needs better? You know, why do they come to you for the managed services aspects?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So when we're talking about customers that are in the middle or considering an acquisition, there's a lot of potential risks associated with that acquisition. You need to understand the technical debt related to that acquisition. We start with risk advisory and third-party audits, and so we help our customers understand the organization that they're acquiring, understand their state of compliance and their state of technical debt, and then help those customers understand what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. And so it helps provide clear decision making for the organization that is acquiring the other organization. And so from a CDW perspective, we help our customers prepare for that acquisition by understanding the state of risk or potential risk in that acquisition. Obviously, you're making that acquisition because of certain business decisions, but that business decision needs to be tempered by, the potential risk to that organization, and about understanding that risk so that you can make your mitigation strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's key. I think going into acquisitions, I mean, the first thing we always try to do is just better understand the landscape. Like, okay, your IT is very rarely involved in the negotiation phase. They're very
rarely, yeah.
That's putting it lightly. But a lot of times IT is the first hurdle that you have to get through as you're going through an acquisition, because you really aren't even starting to merge until people are able to communicate with each other, and you have to get technology talking in a lot of cases to do that.
Yeah, it's not quite until day zero or day one when you're finding out that we've partnered with a new a new business. So we then, you have your intro call, you work, and then we work through our body of work to securely and properly onboard a new business and integrate them, not just into our team, but into our organization.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about some of the different attributes that really when organizations are looking to manage services, why you do what you do. So we talked a little bit about agility. We talked about, having that relationship and that understanding be with an organization rather than a net new individual. And so you have that sort of incumbent understanding. If so, an organization is out there, they're having trouble with the agility, so they're struggling to sort of meet demand. They're struggling to do the 24/7 that's a lot of times required for IT. How do they start building that plan? And I mean, a lot of other things when we talk about technology, we're like, well, start small, start simple, take the simple use cases. But if you were new to an organization and maybe they're not using any sort of external services, walk me through a little bit about how you would start that process.
Yeah, I think it's coming up with the the technical requirements and then the business requirements, and then leveraging your network to and when I say network, I mean people network, not technology network, but just leveraging your network to start to source the right partner to take on some sort of a task or a project. Mm-hmm. An example that I'll give is, we're working through various streams of hardware revitalization and remediation of network equipment and a transformation of veterinary software. And when you're talking about rolling out to hundreds of locations and thousands of users, you start off small, right? In small chunks, you do a couple of sites, and then you eventually scale. At this point, we're at a couple of dozen sites per month for each work stream that we're deploying to, and of course it's taken time, but you trip over yourself along the way, and you continuously fine-tune your process, and you build that confidence with your partner, and that's when either you've partnered with the right person or the wrong person, and you just sort of scale from there, right? And you get to understand what other services your supplier is offering, and it just sort of grows from there.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to trust you mentioned earlier, and sort of building that trust. And we'll talk about some of the attributes that we feel make good managed services partners. But from your perspective, Graham, when you're talking to a customer, and maybe they haven't come to you for managed services yet,
sure,
but you're starting to dig into what your customer is trying to accomplish. What are some of the things that the customer is starting to talk about? What are some of the phrasing that they're using that start to lead you to believe, oh, we should probably be talking about managed services, right? We talked about agility. We talked about the need to be able to scale. But when you're talking to a customer about our security programs, where do you start to see the evidence that, oh, this really should probably be a managed services discussion?
Great question, KJ. I think that when organizations are looking to transform their environment, whether it's adopting new security controls or new network controls, or really just any sort of internal technical capability that drives the business forward, they need to make sure that when they invest thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on IT equipment, that they're gaining the value of that investment. And so how do you ensure that you're gaining that value? You have to make sure that you're able to operate that environment in a manner that is agile for that business to compete in the market. And you need to make sure that the people that you have on staff are able to take that technology, take that solution, and ensure that you're optimizing your business and driving it forward. And so sometimes for managed services, I look for things like customers that are looking for to adopt a new compliance standard. And they need a new security monitoring solution, like a SIM solution or an MDR solution. Those are very complex and technical solutions that drive a lot of value for the business, but there's not a lot of expertise available. And so if you think that you can take your internal teams and turn them into threat hunters, turn them into SOC analysts, the average SOC analyst, when they start, they're not really driving a lot of value until maybe year 2 or year 5 of that of their career. And so you've already invested in thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of that new solution, but you're not driving the value. And so to me, that's when you look at a managed services partner that already has the expertise, they already have the certification, and they have they've demonstrated that they can deliver this for other customers. That's when you start considering, maybe I shouldn't train up my folks. Maybe I should look for an outsourced partner to drive the value of that initial investment.
Okay, so we had 3 acronyms. You got a SIM.
Yep. A SIM, so Security Information and Event Management System. Fundamentally, what that is a platform or solution that performs the security monitoring function against a data center, a network, or cloud environment, or potentially all 3. It's meant to collect data across the network, uncover security threats, and allow the SOC analyst to respond to that threat and hopefully remediate that threat before it becomes too problematic for that organization. So yes, that is SIM. I think I talked about MDR.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, MDR, great question. MDR is Managed Detection and Response. Let's start with EDR. EDR is an endpoint detection and response solution. Think of it like an endpoint protection platform with additional capabilities. Think of it as next-gen capabilities when it comes to uncovering threats against a particular asset. So that is EDR. MDR is fundamentally managing that EDR solution for that customer, layering on threat investigations and response capabilities, so that when the SOC analyst detects something, validates that it's a threat, they are able to take a response, isolate that threat within the network, and mitigate the action of that threat actor against that organization. There's also a part 3 to that, and that is XDR. XDR is fundamentally extended detection and response. Think of it as the 2.0 for an EDR solution, which is endpoint detection and response. So extended detection and response layers on the EDR functionality, also adds in network telemetry and cloud data, so that you have your security visibility across all of the environments that you do business in. And so it's EDR, MDR, Managed Detection and Response, and then XDR, which is adding additional visibility to provide that complete visibility for that organization.
So if an organization was looking to deploy a endpoint management protection suite, as opposed to us or a client going and buying it off the shelf and training up their help desk, you have access to security engineers and analysts who could presumably deploy that and offer that as a service,
yes,
right, per endpoint or per user, as opposed to having me train up my help desk to learn and having to go through thousands of alerts every day. Right.
That's exactly it. It's really about, really focusing on the threat and making sure that you qualify that action so that you can help protect that customer. Standing up your own internal SOC. We've had some data related to this. It takes about 2 years and $5 million of investment. Sort of as the bare minimum. Right. And so many organizations don't know where to start. And so finding the right partner to handle that challenge is often the route that they go, because they definitely want that added layer of protection, but they're not able to drive that value in that investment. And so looking for a managed services partner will help that organization choose the right solution, protect that environment, and obviously go about their business, focus on their go-to-market strategies.
So, and SOC is Security Operations Center, which is fine. No, it's okay.
That's right. No,
which is good. But I think what's interesting is in that discussion, we sort of summarized what you were talking about, Giancarlo, which is the being able to take advantage of the capabilities of a third party. And when you talk about a 2-year uptick in a cybersecurity world, a lot can happen in 2 years. So I think what's really interesting is, as an example from a security perspective, is really being able to take advantage of the deep technical expertise of that managed services partner rather than having to build it your own. And I like that you have statistics around what that level of investment is and what that time period is. I think that's also pretty important. So I think that, the next thing is, and we've circled this a little bit. We talked about trust. We talked about the ability to scale. I think we talked about the need to have services and capabilities beyond what your on the bench team has. But, in your mind, Giancarlo, what makes a good managed services partner? What are some of the attributes and qualities that over time allow that relationship to really flourish?
Yeah, I think, a good partner really knows your business, understands, not just the technical aspect, but the business. How does the technology integrate with the business? What are the dependencies? Also, the ability to scale is kind of a key indicator of a good partner. Again, when you're dealing with hundreds of locations, thousands of users, sometimes for some organizations, boutique is good, but in our case, we need someone who can scale and keep up with the pace and the demand and also the complexity. And then, after a project is done or a certain product is deployed, a good partner is constantly measuring and bringing metrics and statistics, showing that any sort of KPI and how you can constantly fine tune process.
Yeah, and KPIs are interesting because, again, when you think about your on the bench personnel, you're trying to make sure that you're measuring their success and you have a means to do that. I know on our side we use NPS, Net Promoter Score, and we really focus in on that. So I'm going to flip this because again, my background is on the customer side. So I want to flip this to you, Graham, which is what makes a good customer.
Oh,
so as a managed services provider, I think Giancarlo mentioned sharing of data, but really, how does the customer engage and really make that managed services relationship more successful with the things that they do?
Yeah. So great question. Just to recap, I've always worked on the services provider side. But if I put myself in the shoes of the customer, what would make me a great partner for a managed services partner? I think it's really about communication. It's about sharing clear expectations and helping the managed service provider drive success within your organization. We try to strive. You mentioned our NPS score. We are laser focused on customer satisfaction. We've got multiple teams working on customer success, service delivery, and continual improvement. And so it's that ongoing communication allowing us to understand how we're performing and giving us time to add additional services, transform how we deliver that service for that customer, and driving that success for that customer. That is important. To me, it's a partnership. We are here to enable our customers so that in their go-to-market strategy, without setting those expectations, without the ongoing touch points that we provide to our customers. We have our monthly service performance meetings and our quarterly business reviews. Those are the ongoing touch points that allow us to communicate with our customers and understand how we're performing and allow us to create initiatives that improve how we deliver our services. All of our services benefit from our ongoing focus on continuous improvement and delivering the services that our customers are expecting in the manner by which they expect as well.
And all of those points that you touched on, Graham, those are NPS, QBRs, other relevant KPIs. Is the type of data that we're often bringing to our executive leadership team because we're measuring ourselves, but we're also measuring our partners for these types of initiatives.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think a lot of this is the same types of expectations you have from your on the bench employees.
Exactly.
It's good communication. It's creating measurable goals. It's living up to those goals and objectives. And you're right. At the end of the day, it's about showing value, right? Because the business needs to be benefiting from the relationship ultimately and better able to accomplish their goals.
And sometimes, you know, depending on the project or the task, we need to pivot, right? So, you know, the right partner, a really good services provider, should be able to pivot according to their customer needs, right? So.
And that brings up, you know, potentially the flip side of that, and it isn't always as easy as you know, this is what's good, so then the opposite is then bad. But I guess, you know, what are some of the risks in, you know, partnering with the wrong partner? And again, when I think about the way in which services and the way in which, you know, services organizations like CDW Canada engage with our customers, you know, a bad professional services engagement, it has an expiration date. You know, a bad staff augmentation or consulting engagement, again, it has an end date. Managed services is generally a much larger investment over a period of time, and the expectation of what you're going to receive over that period of time. So I guess, what are some of the things that you can call out that are maybe, you know, the warning signs or the dangers and risks of a bad relationship or a bad managed services agreement?
Yeah, I think, you know, any services provider who's just not able to scale, you know, keep up with the demand. Again, when you're dealing with hundreds of locations, thousands of users, the volume becomes quite high, and the complexity also becomes quite high. So not being able to scale for sure is a key indicator. You know, once the communication for sure starts to diminish, that's then reflected in the KPIs. So it's all sort of tied together, which certainly are red flags in not being able to offer the right service for your customers.
Yeah, and I think on the provider side, I mean, one of the challenges that I've noticed is sometimes when the RFP or the services request is just not a good managed service, or it's too customized. And so I guess from your perspective, Graham, as a managed services provider, you know, what are some of the risks and challenges with developing the appropriate managed services agreement that you want to deliver for the customers?
Yeah, so some of that is about being forward thinking, and so we definitely want to have managed services for technologies and solutions that are meaningful in the market, because you're able to offer that service to many more customers. And so when we think of you know, launching a new service, we definitely think of market trends, where our customers are going, where they're buying, who they're buying from, and where we think that they're going to head towards. And so we need to be meaningful to those customers both today and tomorrow. We need to be able to transform as the market changes and still be meaningful to those customers as they evolve and transform their business.
Yeah, it's trying to figure out where technology is going, especially when I'm not going to say it, but there's a certain very influential technology that's everywhere, and it's the tip of everybody's tongue. So yeah, planning that change and planning how we can move forward, that definitely becomes a challenge, especially, you know, on the customer side, where you again, your focus isn't necessarily to be an IT shop, but technology is critical to what you're trying to accomplish.
For sure.
So when you look at, you know, we talked a little bit about the reasons why we would, you know, invest into a managed services partnership. Talked about, you know, some of the qualities that make a good managed services partner and some of the things that you need to really make that relationship work. How do you go about talking to, you know, leadership and management, especially for organizations that maybe haven't consumed managed services historically? How does that conversation go, and how do you as a leader really help the organization move forward and start taking advantage of some of those types of services?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's being able to articulate sort of the the requirements versus, you know, the nice to haves, and then, you know, depicting sort of the journey in how to get to where the organization needs to be for a particular initiative or some sort of driver, and then, you know, weighing out the options of insourcing versus partnering with a managed services provider. And, you know, with the right provider, you sort of wipe away the entire need to, you know, onboard and screen candidates and hire and manage more people. Whereas, you know, again, with the right supplier, you have the right terms established and the appropriate expectations. It's a lot quicker to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that more and more the way that we've sort of communicated cloud to non-technical leadership, I think that's helped the conversation as well, in that it's a lot of the same reasoning, it's a lot of the same, you know, value proposition. What's interesting to me is the number of organizations that also want managed services to wrap around cloud services. And I think part of that comes back to the 24/7 nature and you know, always on from a technology perspective. So Graham, what drives towards a higher net promoter score? Like where are we focused in to really make those managed services relationships ideal? Not only from the customer side, but when it's ideal from our side as well, then we obviously have an easier time meeting the requirements, right?
Right. So definitely you want to be an expert in the technology that you're supporting for that customer and that you're driving value to them. When customers face challenges when it comes to IT in particular, you want to be available to them to resolve those issues. Sometimes it's just the technology is failing and we need to re-architect a solution or find a right solution that meets their business needs. And so being flexible, listening to our customers, and then understanding how we drive that solution forward is really important in establishing what I'd like to call a trusted advisor relationship. We have many customers that have gone through many renewal cycles because we've evolved our services for that customer. Our customers are transforming their organization to meet their business needs and you know, address their go-to-market strategy. The right partner will evolve with them, suggest changes in transformation that enables them to optimize their performance in the market. And so we've consistently demonstrated the ability to transform with our customers, adopt new technologies, drive that service excellence that we're focused on, and then obviously maintaining a healthy relationship when it comes to that partnership.
Yeah, and then so Giancarlo, when you think about it, you know, what is that sort of nirvana state with a managed services provider? You know, how do you go about identifying that the managed services provider is not just meeting their needs, but really providing value?
I don't think I've come up with sort of a grading, you know, some sort of a grading scale yet, but you know, I guess organically over time, once you see that, you know, there's good communication, clear and transparent procurement process, and you know, billing and meeting the needs of both the business and the technical requirements, you know, and then good NPS scores, whether it's within your internal team or customer facing types of requests or support, then, you know, I think that would be that would satisfy a good managed services partner.
Yeah, and the one acronym I'm gonna point out that hasn't come up is service level agreements, SLAs. Yeah. And I think that, you know, especially when we talk about a really positive relationship, you're not having SLA conversations all the time. Like that's when you know that things have really begun to struggle. So yeah, and I think that's great. I love not talking about SLAs as well. So how much does the type of technology play in? So the scenario is, let's say we're talking about something net new like artificial intelligence. When you think about AI, so I waited almost all the way through the episode before we mentioned AI. But when you look at AI and how AI is going to plug into your organization, you know, how does the newness of the technology either steer you towards maybe a managed service or a platform as a service versus doing that in-house?
Great question. You know, I think based on the complexity of the deployment and, you know, the cost to deploy, the lead time to deploy, but also the ongoing sustainment of a particular platform or AI, for example, if in-house just doesn't have the capability or the lead time to roll out and configure and fine-tune exceeds the expectation or a particular requirement, then I think it's appropriate to partner with a managed services provider.
Yeah, I think with newer technologies, it's always, you know, sometimes it's easier because it's greenfield. It's sort of net new and how you approach it. So as you go forward, you know, where do you see managed services, you know, continuing to be part of your plan? And you know, has that changed?
I think it will continue to evolve, and you know, if as an example, if there's ever an interest to build up a SOC, I can, you know, Graham has access to all the analysts, the engineers, you know, the already has the blueprint in how to develop the processes and build the SIM leveraging our existing private cloud or Azure Sentinel, for example. So I do see the need for managed services to continue to evolve, and you know, we're sort of at a point now where it's almost like a staff aug, where if I require someone within the services team to sit in on a call for a particular project, we have that understanding, and you know, we've got the clear communication, and they understand our caliber and expectations, where I trust my managed service provider to sit in on an internal meeting to discuss a particular project.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting when you get to the point where, and I think that's the goal, is to get to the point where your staff augmentation consultants, your managed services provider, your professional services provider, are really in those meetings, looking at how you run your business and seeing how they can provide value, and also seeing how their service is helping you accomplish your goal and mandate.
Yeah, so like a good example is Graham, Graham, solution architect, sitting in on a design call, and you know, ingesting all of the requirements, then bringing forward sort of an infrastructure or solution design. You know, it gets reviewed and approved, and then his team goes away to build out that solution, right? And then, you know, from my point of view, it's just monitoring and measuring, and then I only talk to Graham sort of, you know, on a monthly touch point, and then, you know, in a few months during a QBR, and then, you know, I get a sense that his team is go ahead and building and deploying, and, you know, we can sort of focus on running the rest of the department.
And then from a managed services provider perspective, you know, how do things go forward in the future? You talked about, you know, identifying where technology is going, and then how you sort of drill down on that and focus on that. You know, where do you see things going in the future here?
Ooh, if I really knew, no, I'm just kidding. I was going to suggest playing the lottery, but in terms of the future, particularly when we talk about AI, our businesses are going to transform rapidly. There are going to be startups that are material partners or players in this space due to AI. AI is really about enhancing productivity and getting the most out of your resources, at least from my perspective. And so if you're not in the AI game, your competitor is, and they're adopting and they're evolving much faster than you. And eventually, you may not have a market to serve. And so when I think of managed services and helping our customers drive forward their go-to-market strategies, capabilities. It's really about understanding the emerging trends and how those trends solve problems for customers, and being able to provide sort of a trusted advisor opinion when it comes to picking the right solution and the right path that allows that organization from start to finish move in the direction where the rest of the market is going, and allows them to be relevant in the future as well. And so that's really a key component in I think what our organization does is we have such great partnerships. We understand where trends are going and where our customers are adopting, and we're helping our customers choose the right path for them, because we've seen so many customers go down that similar path. And so the value of being a partner with CDW is we speak to so many customers and we speak to so many partners. We help our customers choose the right path because we're seeing similar paths taken in other parts of the business.
Yeah, and I think that ties back into the part of the conversation we were talking about earlier, which was the expectation that the managed services partner is really bringing additional perspective. So I think that's a great way to sort of wrap it up. I think we talked about what we're looking for, what the good looks like. I think we talked a little bit about kind of where we think the future's going. But Graham, thank you for joining us today. Giancarlo, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you guys coming in and offering your insights. I'm KJ Burke. I'm your host for the CDW Tech Talks podcast. Thank you very much.